Hi, it's Mark Owen from Moose Marketing PR, the editor of Punchline magazine. Welcome to Punchline Talks, the big interview. Today, it's my very dear friend, Roman Cooper from Allcooper Property Limited. Welcome to Punchline Talks, Roman.
Morning, Mark. Glad to see you as well. Very, very grateful for your giving me this opportunity.
Well, I'm really looking forward to today. I've known you a long time. You've been involved with the G-First LEP, and you were on various boards throughout the years. What are you actually doing now? Because you sold Allcoopers, which we'll come back to. Can you tell us all about Allcooper Property, please?
Yeah, so Allcooper Property is a business that I own with my brother Gerrard. We've had the business for a number of years now, and basically we were owner-managed business. So we had the site in Kingsholm that we operated our business from and refurbished and brought back to life. So that's our sort of major property in there. At the moment, since we sold the business, we've rented the property to Securitas, who bought us. Plus, we have a number of other tenants who are great, who are renting the space. And then we've got, I think, two, maybe three in the offing other properties that we rent out to other tenants as well.
Because you own the land down Barnwood Road, isn't it? And where the Aldi was, which was where your old business was.
Yes, that's it. So we own that site. And then we developed that site out with Barnwood Construction, did the work there for us, and that's rented out to Aldi.
Right. Okay. So let's go back to Allcoopers, because you sold it. I think it was 2019, wasn't it?
Yeah, we did. It's flown by. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Gone really, really quickly. How many people did you have working for you when you got sold to it? And what was your sort of turnover?
Yeah, so well, some people often ask me how many people were working for me, and I think the answer was probably half of them. That's a joke. We had a brilliant team, and it's kind of why we sold the business. So we sold with about 110 people, and that was split mainly across the Gloucester business, which was the biggest area, and we had a London division that my brother looked after. And the sort of story, we turned over about 7 million then, and the story is that Securitas became our biggest customer, and they liked what we did, and they liked the way we did it, and we were reciprocal. We moved our monitoring business to Securitas, so we were kind of playing the game. And they said, we're looking to buy a company. They were using installers as partners rather than having their own division. So they came to us and said, look, we'd really like to have our own division and have our own team, and we're looking to buy somebody. Would you be for sale? So we went away and discussed it, because we weren't for sale. I mean, we were a second generation business, and Gerrard had several members of the family working at the business. So we went away and discussed it, and we had a negotiation with Securitas, and we agreed to sell. So it's a big change, obviously.
I was going to say, it must have been a wrench, because you ran the business how long for?
It was 33 years since the business started, with my brother Gerrard, who's a technical guy, and my dad retired early from Birds Eye Walls. He'd been at Birds Eye Walls for 30 odd years. So so that's it was a big thing, and I joined. So the business started in June 1987, and I joined in September 1987.
How old were you then, mate, when you joined up?
I was 18.
You were 18 when you joined the company. And Gerrard?
Gerrard was 23, 24. He was just he just got married and just started a business. Yeah.
Okay, so you're really quite young. I mean, your dad then set up the company. Was it always called Allcooper?
Yeah. So no. So what actually happened is that Gerrard wanted to go on his own. He's an electrician by trade, trained at Mitchell's, and had various jobs, and ended up at a company called Fire Service Appliance in Gloucester, and he was looking after their intruder alarm business that they bought, but they were mainly fire. So Gerrard always wanted to go on his own, because he'd worked with a lot of middle-aged and older guys who were very bitter, who'd not taken their opportunities when they were younger. So he really didn't want to do that, and that was kind of the mainspring for. I'm speaking on behalf of Gerrard now, but that was kind of where he wanted to go. So at least he'd had a go. So he had a go at setting his own business up and running it, and that was the mainspring behind the business. My dad had worked at Unilever for 30 odd years, and they moved head office down to Weybridge. So he didn't want to go and relocate the family and move there. So he took early retirement at 55. So there was a combination of things. So Dad took early retirement. Gerrard wanted to go on his own, and I'd done my A levels and wasn't really sure what I was going to do next. So it kind of those sort of things conspired so that we would end up all working together in the September.
So did you always have that unit on Barnwood Road? I can't remember the name of the road. Sorry, it's
yeah, it's Barnwood Road.
It is Barnwood Road. Yeah. So is that where you set up the company originally?
Not at all. No, I mean it was Dad sold his car so we could buy a van, which we did, a very old Bedford van. Gerrard got the Prince's Trust money, to set the business up. I think it's £45 a week, which really kept him going. He just got married. He'd had a house. He bought a house in Armscroft Road that was a wreck that he was refurbishing, and so we worked out the spare bedroom. Effectively, he had a filing cabinet with batteries in one drawer and detectors in another drawer and other bits and bobs in another drawer, and that was it. And we had one van. So we that was our original location, and then we managed to rent a bit of space on Oxtalls Lane where the petrol station is. Jim Porter owned that garage, and we converted a couple of double garages down the bottom there. They were derelict, and we turned them into an office and a store. And we moved from there to Inslee Gardens, and then we bought another little place around in Hucklecote too, just off Green Lane. And it was from there then that we spotted the site in Hucklecote, which was again derelict. It was a shell garage. It was really in very poor condition, and we bought it with Older King. So Older King were marketing it, and my dad, we were really punching above our weight, but Dad did a bit of wheeling and dealing, which he was very, very good at. To be fair, it was his real skill. And we bought it. We bought the site, and Older King were very honourable and brilliant people to deal with. And the sort of rest is history, because having that site has underpinned the business and the family ever since, really.
So how did you work? How did you get your first couple of customers? Or did it one customer? Or did it just grow? Did you see more people? Was it just recognised a slot in the in the marketplace?
So there were two or three things that really helped. So the first thing is that when Gerrard wanted to set up on his own, he approached his boss, a chap called Graham Bidmead, and said to Graham he wanted to set up on his own, and he recognised that this intruder alarm business that they bought from that company had bought mainly from the Forest of Dean. There was a little company that was for sale that they bought, was a lot of hassle, and intruder alarms are a lot of hassle. He approached Graham and said, look, this isn't really part of your core business. They were doing extinguishers and fire blankets and not a lot of electronic stuff at the time. I'd like to go on my own. Would it be possible for me to buy that part of the business off you, so I've got a ready-made customer base? And to be fair to Graham, he agreed that, and then gave us incredibly favourable terms. So which we honoured, and he was a remarkable man. So he was brilliant. The second big influence on us at the time when we started was my brother-in-law Jim Hickman. Jim was a solicitor in Gloucester, still is. He's at Langley Wellington, but he was at Cook and Hickman. That's his own business with Jim Cook. Jim was very well connected and had a lot of good contacts and friends and all the rest of it. So we were kind of introduced into that network, if you like. So our first official customer was Bob Short. Do you know Bob Short? He was the auctioneer from Gloucester. So Bob, lovely man. He was our first official customer. We were working for people like Naylor Powell, Richard Powell, and Mike Naylor, and so on. And it kind of snowballed from there. And then the final one was Edmonton's Electrical. People would go in there and say, I'm looking for an electrician, can you recommend somebody? So the trade council would just give our name over, and we'd pick up work from that. And then it was that kind of work hard, do a great job, and if somebody would recommend you, and you get another job. So I think that's sort of what started. I think that helped with the technology as well. The intruder alarms had really evolved to become quite reliable and quite accessible for people. And I think there was a bit of a crime wave, so we're sort of riding the crest of a crime wave as well, putting a lot of intruder alarms in.
I see. So hold on a second. So crime does pay then, but for you guys? Yeah,
that's right. Every cloud, as they say, Mark.
Cloud. What was the biggest mistake you guys made apart from this interview?
Yes, that's right. Well, Well, I think there's, I mean, it just goes on and on and on, really. You know, I think we've made every mistake in the book twice over, at least. You know, so I think I think if you look at it commercially, we started working in London way back in the 90s, and early 90s, and we should have bought a property there or two or whatever, anything, a shed. It would have been worth. So I think that missing that boat every decade, because you also think, surely it can't keep going up. It can't keep going up. And we should have bought something equivalent to what we bought in Gloucester in London, and that would have been an incredibly valuable asset. You know, in terms of overall values of things, the properties that we've had over the years have been worth more than the business was, which is an odd lesson to learn. And I think that in terms of, you know, from an operational point of view, you know, trusting some people too much, and involving them into the business, maybe making them a director or more, and then it not quite working out. That was difficult. So, you know, there is an opportunity. You should be looking to bring outside people to your board and try to help you do that. But I think that's fraught with danger if you get that wrong. You can really take a big step backwards in your business. And I think that's probably, you know, they're probably the two things.
You're also involved in G First LEP as well. Do you sometimes think, and other things, do you think sometimes you can get distracted too much by, in some ways, doing a little bit too much for the community?
Yeah, so I think that I was lucky to join the LEP when it came out. It was actually Suzanne Hall-Gibbons suggested it to me. She sent me a note saying, "Have you seen this? They're advertising for board members," and so I thought, well, you know, my kids were a bit younger. It's probably 10 years ago now, so kids were still at school. Was very busy at work and so on and so forth. But I thought this goes on to one of my things that you're going to ask me later on, the things that, you know, things we should do in business, you know, things you recommend. This was all about investing in myself. So if you think about where I was coming from, I work in a family business. I've got my family around me. I've only learned from my family. They're only learning from me. We did bring in some external advisors, but nevertheless, this was an opportunity. And I'd done an MBA as well at University of Gloucestershire. So I knew the benefit of exposing myself to other people and other bits of knowledge. And I wanted to understand how it worked with the councils and all the rest of it. So I was lucky enough to be accepted onto the board. And I really, really enjoyed it. There were some remarkable people on the board all the way through, not least Diane, obviously, which we all know about. But people like Mark Hawthorne, you know, I can understand, you know, I can understand the political angle of everything that we did and said. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. But yeah, you can spread yourself too thin. I was involved in charities. I was involved in Rotary and various other things. So I did step back from a couple of things and just focused on that. But yeah, it was probably, I gave it what I could, but it was still, you know, it was probably, you could spend every day of the week working on the LEP stuff, because it was so yes, busy and so good.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Same as when I was in the Gloucester Urban Regeneration Company. Sometimes it's easier to do those things that you like when your own business is actually quite hard work. So go, yes, oh, shiny thing over here, I'll work on this, which is bringing you no money in, and just because you want to help, and your own stuff is falling by the wayside. Let's talk about the family quickly, because obviously you had your dad, you had your brother, yourself, you had other members of the family. Did you guys always get on? It must have been difficult sometimes.
Yeah, it was. So originally the business started with effectively Gerrard and my dad in that June, and then I joined in September, and then a couple of years later, my older brother Tim joined. So Tim was working at Ensley Insurance, and we worked together. My dad's dream. My sister then joined the business as well. And my dad's dream that he wanted, which was the name Allcooper, was that all the Coopers would work together, and that was what he wanted to happen. And we did that for about 15 years, and then it kind of run its course. We'd all grown up a bit, so we're now kind of 30s, mid 30s, and so we had a couple of ideas about what we wanted to do, and it wasn't quite the same. So Tim left the business. Whenever it was a long time ago. So Tim left the business, and then Dad stepped away from the business, and that sort of left Gerrard and I owning the business and going forward with it. So and then Gerrard's two daughters worked in the business. As I said, my sister worked in the business. Her son Patrick worked in the business, and Tim's two boys worked in the business, and then various nieces and nephews worked in the business during their holidays from college or university. So it was pretty family orientated.
It was all Cooper.
In one. You got it now, Mark. As the penny dropped.
The penny finally got there.
Yeah.
The one thing I have noticed about Gloucester, and I love Gloucester for it, is that, you guys, there are so many different individual business families, embroiled in together from when you were such an entrepreneurial spirit of your age group, isn't there?
Yeah, it's odd. I went to St. Peter's, and it seems, and I've had conversations with people about this, that obviously it was, in my day, it wasn't so academically focused. So the sixth form was quite small. So there was only a very, very small amount of people going on to do degrees. So what you have is, I guess, and this is, I'm take myself out of this, but you have a number of bright people who today would have gone on to go on do degrees and become professionals, maybe lawyers or whatever else it is, but actually not doing that and working in the local community. A lot of them ended up in their family businesses or created family businesses. So I think that oddly enough, that those few years that the people I know went through St. Peter's, came out the other end. You've got the McGurks, who are obviously huge employers locally, very successful businesses. I was at school with the Befolco boys, and they've got Settabello's and the Docks, and other businesses have been hugely successful. And then you can look around, and Lux. I remember when my brother was at school, the Lux family, the temporary traffic light business. They were nationwide. They went through St. Peter's. So I think there's dozens and dozens of others that you could mention. But yeah, I don't know why that happened. I don't know whether it was because my mum's side of the family, a lot of Irish, a lot of Italian, a lot of Ukrainian, a lot of Polish people, that sort of second generation, if you like, in the UK, just getting on with things. I don't know quite what it was, but there's definitely an entrepreneurial spirit, in the city and in the area.
Now, can I ask you how much you sold your business for?
You can ask me, Mark, but I think we discussed this before. You can go and find out, do a bit of work. It's on a website somewhere. It was, it wasn't enough, Mark. You'd agree with me. It wasn't enough. So
it wasn't enough. It was worth it.
Here's my. You notice the cap, you see. Yeah.
They pay for that as well. They pay for that. So
that's what I got.
We kind of touched it when suddenly you sold your business. Your family company's gone, the business is gone. You got your money and you ran, and it must have been a bit of a shocker then when we touched on it before, you and I, where suddenly the phone didn't ring, did it?
Yeah, so it wasn't quite as brutal as that. So what happened was that Gerrard and I stayed on in the business. So Gerrard was always going to stay on for a year, and I had a sort of open-ended view of it. I wasn't quite sure how it would play out. The guy I dealt with who was from Securitas, a great guy, he was saying you're going to be a bit shocked working in a corporate environment going from where you've been. And I tried my best. I really tried to adapt to it, and I thought I did well. And then COVID hit. So we sold in that April, and then COVID hit the following January. And I was still working in the business as an employee, running the service side of the business. And COVID hit, and when we went through analysis of the business, who was going to be furloughed, it was me. I was one of the people who. So I was away for a few months, and when I came back, I really struggled. The business had moved on. It was like they'd gone to Zoom, and everything was electronic, and they'd really sharpened up. And I found it very hard to get back up to speed in that day-to-day operational. I was used to 30 years of keeping all the plates spinning, all of them, and then suddenly when they're not there, I find it hard to pick it back up again. And then there was a structural plan that they were going to do, as like a restructure of the business. And I spoke to my boss and said, well, look, I'm not entirely sure that this is going to be okay for both of us. So we agreed to leave. So I left in the October of 2021.
Was it a natural thing then to set up the property company then?
We already had the property company because the property was owned by in it. So we were running these things. So we'd always had property, and we've always been used to running it. And Dad used to look after the commercial property in Hufflecote, before, because we had a number of tenants there. So so that was but when I left the business, you hand your phone in, and it was my old phone number that I'd had for my first and only phone number. And of course, everything I did was involved in a bit, all my home IT, everything I did, I relied on the business for. and then suddenly you take that sort of parachute away from you, and you've got, that phone doesn't ring anymore. It might ring there, but someone else is answering it. So I found that quite challenging, but I understood what was going to happen, that you are yesterday's man, the business moves on. And to be fair, they had a really, really strong management team and a big technical capability. And I had a great team working for me that were able to take the business on. So I don't feel like I was missed that much, if I'm honest.
I have heard of that before, though, where people have retired or they sold up, and actually they're kind of treading water. They hadn't really thought about what they want to do next. They just think they're going to go on lots and lots of holidays, spend more time with the family, and before you know it, they're actually bored, because they used to running lots of things. They used to running upstream. They used to spinning lots of plates all over the place.
Yes, and I think that's common. So as I took a lot of I sounded out a lot of people about this and what happens and how does it work, and we all know the stories of people who retire, at 65, and then they're dead within a year or two because they've lost their sort of mojo. Because we got the property company and Gerrard and I are doing stuff, I bought a little domestic property that I've spent 18 months doing up, and I really enjoyed that. And it was like a decompression chamber. I bought it deliberately to go there. I did all the electrics, all the plumbing, all the heating, as much as I could in there, and that was brilliant. And that just gave me time just to sort of acclimatize to this slightly new world. But as I said, the commercial property keeps me busy. There's stuff that's happening, by and large, most days there's always something to do.
And on a sort of on a passing now, so when you're in your car, what sort of music do you listen to? Now I know that you're not a technical kind of person, so you've probably got a big CD player sitting inside of your car, or 5 discs in the boot, something like that.
Yeah, no, I've got a Spotify account, obviously, Mark, and I still drive a van. When we left the business, I got a van because I did this house up, and it's brilliant. So I've got me Android Auto in there, and I listen to Spotify, and I've got a whole range of stuff. So it can be anything from sort of Ian Jury to anything you like. It really is very eclectic. There's nothing I specifically like, but I tend to listen to sort of current affairs. So whether that's all the sports stuff, so Talk Sport or Radio 5 or stuff like that. That's a bit that kind of I'm more interested in, is to understand what's going on.
Yeah, it's funny. I always like that as well. I'm very into the current affairs, as you can imagine. Okay, what's the last book that you read?
I read that SAS Rogue Heroes book. I know they've just brought a series out on BBC, but and so this is a book that came out in 2016 that we bought. I think my wife Dawn bought for the kids for Christmas once. None of them have read it, obviously, and I found it because we've had a big clear out. It's one of the things you can do when you've got a bit of time on your hands, is go through the house. So I've got various books. This computer sat on a load of books, and so yeah, it was a rogue. I can't tell you who wrote it, but it's a very, very good book, and I think the series. I haven't started watching the series yet, but I imagine that'll be pretty good if it's anything like the book.
Well, it's funny you should say that. I'm actually starting to watch the series. I haven't started watching it either. I actually fed for the SAS, the SAS, the SBS, when I was in the forces, and quite a few other American special forces as well, a couple of times. Anyway, moving on. What's your top 3 business tips, please?
Right. Well, you'll forgive me because I've written these down, so I'll just check them on my phone, because I thought, well, rather than do it off the top of my head, because if these are important, then you should do. So the first one I thought was about investing in yourself. So you've got to take the time out of your business to improve your skills, and that can be leadership, communication, your technical expertise. Learn your product. Your industry is moving on. Whatever it is you're doing, it will move on, and the technology is changing. You don't want to be left behind. So you need to be leading from the front. And the other point of that learning is around finance. A lot of people, have got great skills in their particular expertise, and they can work hard. I mean, that's a great prerequisite, being able to really work hard and do a shift. But if you don't understand the numbers, you're really in trouble. The second one, which I don't think we ever quite managed to do, is about building your team. It's the difference between success and failure, or great success, that's sort of good to great. If you've got a team around you who get it, who are well rewarded, who can add a lot to value to your business, it add exponentially to your business. So I think a business is, maybe like Omega Recruitment with those guys over there. You know, they were all at school together, they built a business together, they thrived together, and they sold that business on. They were really good, and it's like that. It's like almost like the Beatles. What was it that those 4 people had that brought to the party? Very different people that made them such an incredible band. So I think that building a team, and there is an element of luck in that, and you sometimes have to kiss a lot of frogs. You have to go through the process, and we struggled in our industry because sales directors were few and far between, because most people, because it was a small industry, became engineers, then they moved into sales or service, then sales, then the sales manager, and they're sales directors, but they're not really directors. They've just been in the industry a long time, and they're now sort of 45. Whereas, you know, the people who are really driving growth are maybe in industries like the IT industry. But how do they come across to our industry and understand it? So we tried every which way, and well, we struggled with that. That was a real problem. But if you can build that, then that's really good. I've got this bit that says know your business better, know your business inside out, understand where the money's made and how it's made, and where the people are, who the people are, who are the people who are adding value, who are the assassins in the business. You really need to keep your ear to the ground. I think it's very, very easy to just go sailing off and driving for growth and trying to get the new sales in, but actually you may have taken your eye off your ball with your product and your quality. So it's very easy to lose touch with that. And again, that's going back to your team, that you've got people you can rely on. And I did add a 4th one in, sorry, Mark, if you wouldn't mind.
No, of course.
This is about getting the best advice you can. Paying for top quality advice. It sounds expensive, but actually it pays up in the long run. If you get poor advice, if you cut corners on your advice, it will just come to bite you in the bum. So, you know, if you fail to pay your tax, they will get you. Just pay the tax. So I think that having a really amazing advisory network, it really underpinned our business, and I knew that we were taking positive and quality steps in the right direction, because I verified it. It wasn't just gut feel and instinct, which is always helpful, but by able to sort of tangibly get that checked, I think that was really, really critical.
Great last one. Roman Cooper, thanks ever so much for talking to us today. Thanks for talking to Punchline Talks, and I'll see you again very soon.
Been a pleasure, Mark. Thank you.